Okay. All right. Welcome everybody. I know people are still kind of joining in. Probably people will join in um, off and on throughout. But I wanted to introduce you all to, first of all, Miss Tammy Larkins, who's a Cincinnati State admissions representative. Very, very dear friend of mine as well. Past couple of years. And we also have Miss Destiny Howard, which is our financial aid guru over here, who's going to answer all of your questions about the FAFSA more than I can do, and I'll probably learn some new things as well. So without further ado, thank you for keeping your mics muted. Feel free to pop in with any questions that you have, or you can put them in the chat as well. We'll kind of go through the slides, kind of walk you through things. Feel free to try and walk it through it yourself as well. But yeah, without further ado, Miss Destiny, you can take it away.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all for joining, and I hope that you can bear with me. So what I was asked to do was walk you through the FAFSA. That exactly is what I'm going to do. So we're going to take in a lot of content, but keep in mind that this is being recorded. I'm going to forward my PowerPoint on to your counselors. So if you miss something, don't panic. You will have an opportunity to get it and go through it on your own. Okay. So we start off with the FAFSA here. Let's hope I can get it right. There we go. So before you begin your FAFSA, you may not have it with you right now, but there are some things you need to sit down with when you go in to do the FAFSA. If you have them handy, great. We wanted you all to have your FSA ID already completed, and I was told you had to do that earlier. So you should have that, your FSA ID, which is your username and your password, to be able to get in on the FAFSA. We wanted you to have your 2019 federal income tax returns for you and your parent available. And so then we also wanted you to have your parent's social security number and date of birth. Tammy, I love you. Mute yourself. She can't hear me. And then have your state ID or your driver's license with you. Oh, well, we're going to ask Miss Tammy to mute herself there.
I muted her.
Thank you. And if you have a permanent resident card, I want you to have that too. And then any kind of other untaxed income, which may not mean much to you right now. I don't see too many parents sitting next to you. So these are the things you need to have when you get started. When you go to start, just want to ask you to go to studentaid.gov. That is the website where you're going to fill out your FAFSA form. And when you should already have your FSA ID, but I just need to point out, when you have your social security card, your name that you use for the FAFSA, when you type in your first name, should match what's on your card. So if you have a nickname or you've shortened your name or whatever, you want to use what's actually printed on that social security card. If you are using your home computer or anything that might have a pop-up blocker, you want to make sure that's off, because there are pop-ups that come up during the FAFSA completion process. And they do have a mobile app. We're not going through those steps on the mobile app, but if you are one of those people who really loves to use the phone, you can download the Federal Student Aid app and complete the FAFSA through the mobile app. I'm not going through that today. All right, so when you go to studentaid.gov, these are the screens you'll see. This is the first one up in the left-hand corner. And then when you click on Apply for Aid, you will then see the next one. And you want to just click on Start Here. When you click on Start Here, you'll come to this screen where you click in that you are the student and enter your FSA ID. So that's that username and password that you've already made. You'll see this disclaimer. You'll want to read it and then hopefully accept. You're new to the FAFSA, so then yours would only say start a new FAFSA. You won't have an option for renewal. But next year, when you fill out, you should have the option for renewal. You'll click Start FAFSA. And notice that there are two tabs. That's important too. There are two tabs. Make sure you have the highlighted 21-22 tab. 2021 is out there, but that's our current academic year. So if you fill that one out, it won't be the correct one for you. So make sure you highlight the 21-22 tab. Next, you're going to be asked to make a save key. And there is this information right there, the save key. You're making this new for the first time, a nice little 4-digit number so that you can get back into your FAFSA should you need to make any corrections on down the line. And so there's the screen for the save key. You're just making it right there. You'll want to write all of these things down. And something that I really think is important, because if you change emails or phone numbers frequently, you need to write down exactly what you use to make your FSA ID. Because this is the same thing that you're going to use throughout college. So if you go to 4 years of school, this is the same thing. And if you forget it, or you don't have that number anymore, you don't use that email anymore, they're going to have to reset the whole thing. And that takes a lot of time. So make sure you write all this stuff down so you can have it for years to come. So next we're moving into student information. This is the first screen you'll see. You may take time to open each one of those to read it, or you could just choose to click next. They'll ask you your personal information, your social security number, your first name, stuff you should know, right? Your date of birth. And then your email address. Choose an email address that you will have access to after you graduate. So if you have a personal one that's not linked to the school that you can still get into after you graduate, use that one. And then they ask your phone number, address. And then this one is a residency question. They want to know if you've been living in the state that you've listed for at least 5 years. And then you'll click what your citizenship status is. So it's important to do this, because if you don't, a lot of state aid is predicated on this FAFSA completion. So make sure you answer that one correctly. Next, they ask you about your high school completion. If you're graduating from school, you're going to end up having this high school diploma. Choose the degree program that you're going for. So you are going for associates or bachelors. A lot of people are thinking like way down the line and that they're going to get their master's and doctorate, and that's really great. But if you mark that, then that makes them think that you are a graduate student, and then you could lose Pell eligibility. So choose the degree you're going for right now. So if that's an associate or a certificate or degree, your first bachelor's. And then your grade level for you all would be maybe first year attended or never attended, depending on if you did CCP classes. But I think we should just go with never attended. And then work study, a lot of schools may have some available, but of course with Corona, we don't have anybody working on campus. So you can choose if you want to work on campus and get some of your financial aid that way. You want to check your gender assigned at birth. So that is how they're doing here for the gender. And this is important because males are still required to register with Selective Service in order to receive any of these federal student aid programs. So they ask you this on down the line. This is some more information for driver's license or ID. If you don't have one, not a big deal, but if you do, they would like for you to input this to the FAFSA. Yes or no to the foster youth question. And then they just kind of have some census questions about your parents' high school completion. You want to answer that. Parent one, it could be either one, whoever you think go first, parent one, parent two. And then now they're going to ask you your high school information. So you type in your high school name, the city and state, and it should come up with a listing like this. I chose Withrow, and then all the different schools associated with that came up, and then you would select the school, and it just adds on to the FAFSA, and you go next. Now here's where you can add your schools. You can add up to 10 colleges to your FAFSA form, which means your FAFSA could go to your top 10 choices of schools. And that doesn't mean you have to go to every school you send it to. These are just places you're interested in going. Maybe you've already applied, put them here. If you know the school code, you can just enter it. If not, that's fine. You can search by state, city, and the school name to pull them up. This is more information about how you can put the 10 schools on there. The other school can't see who else got your FAFSA. So if you're worried about that, they don't have that. They just get your application. It doesn't matter what order you list the schools in, just as long as they're on there. But you do need to put at least one school on there. So this is what it looks like. Once you get it on there, you want to make sure you check the box showing that's the school you want. And then they'll ask you about your housing plan. So it's either off campus with parents or on campus. Choose one. And that's it for the student information. Now we're going into the dependency status, and this is where we get a lot of our questions. A lot of students are saying, well, I'm 18 now, I'm independent, my parents aren't going to help me with my education, but the Department of Ed has a different definition. So dependent students are those students who are under the age of 24 and they can't answer yes to any of the dependency questions. And the dependency questions all go around your age, of course. So you have to be at least 24 or married or a graduate or professional student, a veteran, a member of the armed forces, or an orphan or ward of court, or someone with legal dependents other than your spouse, or an emancipated minor, or someone who is homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. And any of these others would be considered special circumstances. So if you fall under like the ward of court or the homelessness, we're going to ask for documentation. Your school's going to ask for that. So here's where we get into that with they ask your marital status as of today. And this drop down, you can choose. And then if you say that you are single, then they go into those other questions, which I talked about, your dependents or dependent children. Another pause is if you have a child that is your dependent, but you're still living with your parents, schools really won't consider you independent because you are still being taken care of by your parents. So keep that in mind. These are more dependency questions. And if none of them apply to you, you can't check them. You check none of the above, and then it'll let you move on. And so here's my little caveat for special circumstances. If you feel like you have a special circumstance, you are able to make that petition with the financial aid office for the school of your choice. And they may ask for documentation for your circumstance. Well, we will ask for it. So once we get through that, we're now moving on to parent information. There are a lot of questions sometimes about who qualifies as my parent. So we have a graphic here to go through who qualifies as parent. So if you're living with a grandparent, they don't qualify as your parent. So biological or step parent or adoptive parent would count as parents. So we would go through this, and it's a flow chart. And then, you answer the question. You have two parents, but are they married to each other? Yes or no? Do they live together? And on down the line. So follow these steps here to determine if it's in question, who the parent is or which parent you need to put on the FAFSA. Because generally they want the parent who had the most, had you most of the year prior to filling out the FAFSA. So use this to guide you along the way. So if your parents are divorced or separated, so again, this is at the time that you complete your FAFSA form. Everything's a snapshot there. If parents are separated, it must be a legal separation. If they're married, but they are separated by physical distance, they are considered married for FAFSA purposes. If your parents are divorced or separated and don't live together, answer the questions about the parent with whom you lived with more for the last 12 months. And then for step parent, you you have to use the information for the step parent that lives with the legal parent. And so, yes, their income information must be counted on your FAFSA as well. However, if you're still living with your step parent, but the biological parent is deceased, at that point you cannot use the step parent unless they legally adopted you. So we would probably go through a dependency override process there. Same-sex couples must report their marital status as married if they were legally married in the state or jurisdiction, without regard to where they live or where the student is going to school. If you happen to have a parent who is unwilling, because we get this from time to time, that is not a special condition. That's not a circumstance to make you independent. What would end up doing is making you only eligible for student loans. So if you were able to get any grants or anything like that, you would miss out on that. So if you have a parent that's unwilling, please again contact the financial aid office at the school of your choice so that we can kind of figure out what's going on and how we can best get your application completed. All right. So here we are with filling out the parent's marital status. They do ask for the month and year. You don't have to get specific to the day. And again, as of today. So a little more information along that. And then they're going to need their social, last name, first initial, date of birth, and an email address for the parents. And make sure when you're filling this out, you pay attention because sometimes students will put the wrong initial for the first name, and that can cause an error on the FAFSA. So they ask it for parent 1, and then they ask the same for parent 2. They also ask about your parents' residency. So you just want to say what state, if they lived in the same state that you lived in for 5 years, you would just say yes. If not, you say no. Now we're into household size. So your siblings do count. They're already going to count whatever parents that you said you had, plus yourself. And now you have an opportunity to tell us if there are other people in the house, like siblings or other dependents that your parents take care of. You will enter that information here. And if anybody in that household besides you are in college, you would include yourself and any of the siblings. Do not put your parents. So if mom went back to school, you don't count her. Just anybody besides your parents in the house that are attending college, you would put them in that bottom box. Pretty simple. All right, so now we're going to the financial information. So this is where people tend to get a little nervous, but don't. It can be really easy. Once you go into there, what we're always going to say is use the data retrieval tool. That way, it goes out to the IRS for you and pulls the information into the FAFSA, and you don't have to type it in. However, if you have parents who have filed taxes and filed separately, married filing separately, they aren't able to use the data retrieval tool. If you have parents or you have filed taxes and later did an amendment, you won't be able to use the data retrieval tool. So make sure you're eligible at that point, because it could be frustrating trying to pull it in if you have those things. Also, if your parents got married recently and their 2019 tax returns were filed separately, they won't be able to use the data retrieval tool. So here's what it looks like when you get a chance to click on the data retrieval tool. You need to say that the taxes are already completed. There is an IRS 1040 and not a foreign tax return, and that they have an appropriate filing status. And then you'll see this box come up to link to the IRS. You click on it, it'll tell you you're leaving the FAFSA site, and that's fine. Go out to the IRS data retrieval tool, fill in the little information. They'll ask about the filing status and your address. And then they'll ask you if you want to import to the FAFSA. You'll say yes. and then they'll import it into the FAFSA. You'll go back to the FAFSA. And then once you do that, you're able to move on to adding into the parent's FSA ID. So you have one. You might want to sit with your parents and make sure you help them fill out so at least one of your parents has one as well. They also have to sign the FAFSA. You would enter that here. This is another infographic to show you, in case you forget about that data retrieval tool, what you need to do and how to do it. If you're unable to use the data retrieval tool, you're going to have to go and grab that 2019 IRS federal tax return. I put a picture here because people always bring me W-2s. We want the 1040. So this is what the 1040 form looks like. So if you are wondering, or your parents are asking, this is the form they need to grab to help you fill out the FAFSA form. And as you go through to fill out the FAFSA form, it can be confusing, but shouldn't be, because it tells you what line to look at when you are filling out the form. So it says go to line, on your 1040, go to line 8B. We go backwards and you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you see 8A and 8B. Slide over, that's the number they want. So you will do that for each of the questions. They do it again here. Sometimes you have to do some adding because this tax form is a little special. So you have to check, bring the whole tax packet, because you're going line 1 on the 1040, and then you got to go find a schedule 1 and find what's on those boxes. So you might have to do a little hunting around, which is why we really encourage using the data retrieval tool. But if you don't have it, there are explicit instructions here. So just make sure you take your time and have all your documents there. You might have to do a little adding. So this question is called, this is a simplified path determination. So this is a real easy way for the Department of Ed to determine whether or not you should have Pell Grant or not. It also can cut your application time very short if you answer it correctly. So get the parents' information. If you use the data retrieval tool, it'll answer the question for you. But if you don't, you want to know if there's a Schedule 1 and if there was unemployment compensation or educator expenses, IRA deductions, or anything like that listed on there. If there's a Schedule 1, you want to say yes. And then it asks if one of your parents is a dislocated worker. Not if they are unemployed currently, but if that job moved overseas. You would mark yes or no. And then this box opens, the bottom one opens, and you can check if there are any supplemental programs. If you answer yes to that Schedule 1 and you check any of these, you get the option to skip all the other income questions, because now they're pretty sure you would be eligible for Pell and they don't need to ask anything else. In the event that you can't answer yes to that, there are some additional questions that'll come up for you and for the parent. So this is the parent side. They ask all these different questions about possible sources of income. If you get any of them, you'll want to put the amounts there that you get. If you don't, you want to make sure you have a 0 there. And this is what they call asset questions. So they're going to ask about how much is in your bank account and your net worth and investments. Again, if the answer is 0, you can put a 0 there or whatever the number is, but you can't leave it blank. You do need to put something there. You do, as you can see, get a chance to skip the assets question. I chose not to so you could see the screen, but you can click in yes if you want to skip that. So student income, I'm not going to bore you with all the slides for that because they're the same as the parent. So yours would say student, then you have an opportunity for the data retrieval tool as well. And the screens are similar from there on. And the last thing that you would need to do is sign and submit. So again, that pop-up blocker needs to be off. You're going to sign in using your FSA ID, so you should be fine there. And this is just to remind you that you'll get it processed much faster as long as you're using your FSA ID and you don't have to print the signature page. It'll ask if you are a preparer. No, you're not. So click no. You get a chance to see your summary. So if something's wrong, this is your chance to fix it before you submit. So you'll scroll all the way down and then click to next. And then you'll have these two boxes. You click on the darker blue box for the student signature, and then you'll get a chance to sign and submit, and then your parents will do the same. They'll have to re-enter their FSA ID and then sign and submit. So the sign and submit looks like this, and you still have to click that blue box saying, I want to do this. And you'll have that for the parent, you'll have that for the student. And then once it is there, you can click Submit My FAFSA Now, and you're done. You'll get a confirmation page. So where do we go? Okay, so you can do the FSA ID at studentaid.gov. You'll have to create one. So you need to use an email address that you will consistently have access to once you have graduated high school. And then they'll ask you for your cell phone number, and then you get to make your own password. Whatever it is you choose, at that point you need to write it down, because again, this is going with you for 4 years or longer as you need to fill out your FAFSA form. You're welcome. All right, so there's the confirmation page. It would tell you the information about your school. These are drop downs where it says estimated. And then you can see what you could get. Your school will have the final say on your aid offer, so keep an eye out for that. The number at the top that says DRN is the data release number. You definitely want to keep up with that in case you meant to add a school but didn't. You can share that number with the school and they can add you. Or of course, you can go back in and make a correction. But all these documents you need to hold on to. This comes to you by email, so put it in a folder somewhere and save it. And that is all I have. We made it. Are there any questions for me?
Okay, so when it comes to like the parent finances, you said there's an easier way to have all the information filled in from their tax return besides remotely entering it.
Yeah, you would use the data retrieval tool. So do you remember us saying to link out to that IRS? Get back there.
Mm-hmm.
So you would want to have them do that part, linking out to the IRS when it says link here.
Do they have to create a FAFSA account?
Well, they do need an FSA ID, yes. So you'll
Okay.
want to have them use their email, and then they'll make up their password. Yes, they will need to have that.
Destiny, can I jump in?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm not a financial aid expert, but I know this from doing my children's FAFSA. When your parents use that data retrieval tool, make sure they have their taxes in front of them. Because if you live on Reading Road and on the taxes it's RD, but then you enter ROAD, it's not going to connect. It has to be exact. You have 3 shots and then it kicks you out. So it's always better to have your tax information in front of you. And then that way, because once you do that, it's very smooth, and then you're less likely to be selected. I think you're not even selected for verification, right?
Well, we can say that.
Okay. Well, you're less likely to be selected for verification if the tax information is uploaded. So just have your tax and your parents have their tax information in front of you when you use that tool and enter it exactly how the person did their taxes. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's all I have.
So if you didn't file taxes as a student, you have the app option for a drop down that says not going to file or will not file, and that's fine.
Are we supposed to pick the 2020 to 2021 or the 2021 and 2022?
21, 22.
Okay.
Yep. That's a good question because this is FAFSA New Year. Woo! Only we celebrate. But yeah, so there are 2 of them out there. Don't get confused. 21, 22 will take you for the fall that you'll start school. Any other questions? Well, I'm not Tammy, but I'm going to go ahead and throw in too for students who are considering Cincinnati State. We're looking for these early FAFSAs so we can get you in for our Be Great grant. Go, take it away, Tammy.
Yay! So the Be Great grant is specifically for Cincinnati Public School students. So if your family is Pell eligible, you're automatically included in our Be Great grant. It's for all Cincinnati Public Schools. The criteria is CPS graduate and your family is Pell eligible. With that, we give you $1,000 for tuition and $1,000 for your books. So if your family is Pell eligible, inevitably you don't pay anything to come here to receive your associate degree. It's good stuff. Yeah, more than likely you get a little something back from your Pell. The money, the Be Great money doesn't go back to you. It goes back in the pool. But if you have anything left over, that money goes back to you if your family is Pell eligible. Right now we have a few students here not taking out any student loans. The whole idea, no matter what you decide, you want to minimize your student loan debt. And the way you do that is to get grants and scholarships. So we're giving you a grant just by being a CPS grad. Any questions about the Be Great grants? All right, I hope you guys come here. We'd love to have you.
We
We
would.
do have one question in the chat about student income if they haven't done taxes yet.
Okay, yeah, we grabbed that one a little bit earlier. It's okay to mark will not file, and you'll be okay. It'll let you move on through the FAFSA.
Great, thank you.
And can I clarify one more thing? Because one question I get asked a lot for students who have their eyes set on a university in town or out of state, whatever your thoughts are, a question I got asked a lot this year is will my credits transfer? So the answer is yes, yes, and yes. I'm a proud graduate of Cincinnati State. I took all my credits and went to NKU for various reasons, but you do your homework and it's and our credits will go. So what happens is you come here, get your associate degree, and then all of your credits transfer your junior as you get to the university. So you don't have to take any of that general educational stuff over. Your English comp, psychology, public speaking, you have all of that under your belt, hopefully at a much more affordable rate, minimize your student loan debt, and then you can go start to take out those loans if you need to. Thank you, Miss Destiny. I turned my captions on. It's throwing me so off because everything I've said is populating at the bottom.
Oh,
Destiny, I did have a question about like international students. So I'm a school counselor and work with a lot of them. And some of them don't have a social security number. The thing that I think happens is they fill out a paper form of the FAFSA because they can't also create a FSA ID. But do you know anything about that, like international student?
so the student doesn't have a social, or the parent?
The student. I know the parent you can put in like all zeros and that should work. But yeah, the student doesn't have a social.
The student should have a social if they want to be aid eligible, because they have to be a citizen or eligible non-citizen.
Okay. So if they have like an eligible non-citizen and they have like I think it starts with A and then it has like 7 letters after that.
They
I don't
can
think
use that
that's
number.
okay. Okay.
Yep. But I would think that a social would be soon to follow.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts?
So after, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, girl.
So after our parent create the account, how does that like transfer back into the federal aid? Like when we, how does that put the income and they stuff in the area?
So, okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Just briefly here, just this window. All right, so did it work? Yes, okay. So with this screen here where they link out to the IRS, Before they get over in here to do it, they stop and ask you to enter the FSA ID. And then it would link out to the IRS. So this is where you would enter in that FSA ID and then go next and link out to the IRS site and enter the information and have it pulled back into the FAFSA. So they'll need to write it down and have it sitting in front of them because they're going to have to re-enter it.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Any other thoughts? Well, all righty.
Yeah. Ask them now while you got them on the line. Because if you got a question, somebody else does.
What happens for people in College Credit Plus?
Well, so CCP students are not aid eligible. Once you come out of College Credit Plus and you get into a fully admitted student, then we can talk financial aid. As long as you're CCP, though, you're under a different jurisdiction.
Should they apply for financial aid? Like, should they fill out their FAFSA form knowing that they're planning to move forward, even though they're going to be doing College Credit Plus through the end of their senior year?
Oh, okay, yes. As long as the senior year ends by the next fall of 21.
Yeah.
Yes. And I want to just say, like, so if you're going to go to an Ohio school, the state deadline is October 1st, 2021. So go ahead and fill this out so you can be in line for any state grants. So it's not just federal, but the state uses the FAFSA as well.
And today's the deadline.
No, today's the opening day.
Oh, you mean 2021. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yep.
The pandemic has me confused.
I understand.
I can't remember if you had mentioned this at the end, but so when you complete the FAFSA and it's submitted, that information will be sent to the colleges, and then the colleges will be reaching out to you based off who you've selected on that list, and they will give you a financial award package. So you will only hear from the FAFSA, like student aid, people, if there's maybe an issue with your application, maybe, or like there's something that needs to be submitted or whatever it is.
Or verification, I think, would be the big one.
And that actually comes from us. The school's going to do all that reaching out. Department of Ed, if they had to make a correction on your behalf for some reason, like this wouldn't happen with you all, but on down the line, if you were in default or you had an overpayment, that's where the feds get involved. Any of the other stuff, they just leave it to the schools to contact you. And so there's a chance. So Tammy mentioned it a little bit. We try to use the data retrieval tool so we don't have to select you for verification, but schools can select you and so can Department of Ed. So there's no way to be safe, honestly, but it's just easier to have that stuff pulled in, less likely that you will not be selected.
So my mom has to create a FAFSA account too?
Just the FSA ID. So she doesn't have to.
That's not the whole account.
That's not the whole application that we just went to. She just needs to make a password and a user ID.
Okay.
So when you go in, it's FSA ID, not the whole. She don't have to go through all those unless she wants to go to school. And for the international students, I do just want to say a lot of times their citizenship comes into question. So let them know that they're going to have their documents available to send to the institution upon request.
Sounds good. And I'm also learning a little bit. So you can select colleges to send your FAFSA to. Does the order of steps necessarily mean you have to have applied to them before, or can you send to colleges that apply to them later?
You can. It doesn't matter which order, but keep in mind the school can't pull the FAFSA into an account that doesn't exist.
Okay, gotcha.
So the best thing would be is you could fill out the FAFSA, add everybody on there, and then apply to your school so they at least know you're interested. Yeah. Otherwise, it sits out in cyberspace until they have a spot for it.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So the rule of thumb should be if you're applying to a college, they should be on your FAFSA. And if you decide later you're going to apply somewhere and they're not on your FAFSA, once your FAFSA is submitted and being processed successfully, you're able to go in and make those changes and resubmit it, like add that college. So just keep that in mind.
All true. And that's also where that data release number that we saw at the end come in handy too. So you could share that with the school and they could get access to your FAFSA that way. Anyone else?
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Tam. I don't know if Tammy's still there, but thank you.
I'm here.
This is why Cincinnati State's such a wonderful partner, because they do things like this, and we very much appreciate it. And you students should all look into going to Cincinnati State because they're extremely helpful.
Yay. We appreciate that shout out. Mr. Mook, nice to finally meet you in person. Yeah, we love to have you guys. We love to have you guys. Before we hang up, I'm going to type actually your counselors, they have all my contact info. So if you need any questions answered about admissions process or anything you need to come here, let me know. I'd love to help you. Thank you, guys.